next section we're going to talk about percentages. Percentages are glorified decimals and fractions. Okay? We can take any fraction, convert it to a decimal, and then change that decimal to a percentage. We can also take that and go backwards with it. Okay? Most of you will discover that it is very hard to multiply by hand a percentage. So we have to change that percentage from a percent to a decimal. We can work by hand with decimals. Okay? If you're working with a calculator, most calculators have a percent button on them that make it easier, but it's good practice to convert it to a decimal before you multiply it on the calculator. Okay? So let's go over that a little bit. Decimals first. Okay? We can take any decimal. We prefer them with 2 decimal points, but even the longer ones or the shorter ones, we can work with those too. Okay? We make them into a percentage. The way we make them into a percentage is we move that decimal point 2 spaces to the right. Okay? 1, 2. So this is 23%. Pretty easy, right? If we have a shorter one, of course, 0.3, for example, fine. We move it twice, we put a 0 in there, and this is 30%. If we have a really long one, we can do that too, right? Let me erase this and put a really long one up here. Just to show you it can be done. I'm sure most of you trust me by now. Shame on you, you should always double check your stuff. That sounded like an airplane. I don't know if you could hear that on there, but we got something going on. 763. Wow, we've got a lot of decimal places. We still only move it 2. The rest of them, 1, 2. So we have 23. Most people at this point would round to 1 decimal place. Remember our rounding. We want to round to here, so we check next to it. It's 5 or up, or above, we go up, right? So this one goes up. So typically this would be rounded to 23.5%. Okay? If, however, it tells you to not round, or you look at your answers and you recognize that this one is down there, 23.4763%. If that's down there as an answer, then that's your answer. Okay? If they tell you to round to the nearest tenth, which is very common when you're dealing with percentages, then round to the nearest tenth. Okay? Decimals to percentages is really easy. It's really nice. Okay? Fractions to percentages can be a little trickier depending on what kind of fraction you get. Okay? Ideally, if we're moving from a fraction to a percentage, anything over 100 is perfect. Alright? If you've got 14 over 100 as a fraction, boom. That is nice and simple, 14%. Okay? Why is it 14%? If you pause and think, what is a perfect percentage? Perfect percentage is 100%. 100%. Right? Well, in this case, we only have 14 out of that 100. So we've got 14%. You can also convert this to a decimal first if you would prefer. Okay? This is 14 hundredths. And remember our place values, right? I've got zeros, tens, hundredths. And then we change that 0.14 to a percentage by moving it twice, right? And I end up with 14%. Okay? The question here now, of course, is what if I have a fraction that isn't over 100? Right? Because how often have we seen a fraction that's over 100? Not very often. Well, there's a couple different things we can do if that's the case. Let's say we've got 2 over 5. Right? We can take that 2, long form, divided by 5. Right? We know a 5 that doesn't go into 2. It won't go in there at all. Got a big fat 0 up there. So, I have a remainder of 2, right? We don't want a remainder in this case. We want a decimal. So, I'm going to continue. I'm going to put a decimal in there. I'm going to slap a 0 on the end, because I can do that without changing the value. A 2 is still a 2, regardless of how many zeros I have after the decimal point. If you put a 0 before the decimal point after a 2, it becomes 20, 200, 2000, okay? After the decimal point, and I bring that decimal point straight up. How many times will 5 go into 20? 4, 5, 10, 15, 20. And it goes in there perfectly, and that's what we're looking for. When we start doing division with decimal points, we want it to go in perfectly. No remainders. Okay? So I have 0.4. Now that I have a decimal with this, I can convert it to a percentage. 1, 2, slap a 0 on there, and it is equal to 40%. Right? That's one way to do it. Personally, I think that's a fairly easy way to do it. Okay? And it works. This method works regardless of what number you have on the bottom. The next method does not work always with the number you have on the bottom. It can, but it can become very complicated. I'm going to show you why. The other way to do this is to convert it to 100 on the bottom. You'll notice this looks kind of familiar, right? I don't know what the number is on top. Almost like it's a proportion problem. Because it is. Cross multiply. 2 times 100 is 200 over 5. Alright? Now I have to figure out how many times 200 go into 5. It goes in there 40 times, in case you're wondering. So my x is 40. So I end up with 40 over 100. Right? We just talked about this. If it's over 100, it's nice and easy. You just take whatever is on top, and we slap a percentage sign behind it, 40%. Same answer we got the other way, right? Now where this gets a little tricky, this method in particular, is when I don't have a number that goes into 100 evenly. Right? Let's say I have a 9 on the bottom. Right? I work it the same way. I have 200. 2 times 100 is 200. And I'm going to divide that by 9. Now it doesn't go in as nicely. It's not pretty anymore, right? So, I'm going to work this out long form, because I can't do this in my head either. 9 won't go into 2. It goes into 20 2 times, right? 9 times 2 is 18. Bring down the 2. Bring down the 0. Oh no, I have another 20. So it goes in there 2 times. 18. Bring down the 2. I'm going to add a decimal place. Add a 0. Bring down the 20. It goes in there 2 times. Now you notice I'm stuck in the loop. This is going to continue. Right? Until I die of old age. This is going to keep going. 22.22. Okay? So, I'm going to stop. Whenever this continues and you notice a pattern and it's just going to continue forever, you can stop. After 2 digits, you're done. Okay? Just make sure you tell me that it's going to repeat. Put a line over the repeating part. Okay? So in this case, my percentage is 22.22 repeating percent. Now notice that is not pretty. It can be done, but it's not pretty. Okay? Whereas if I did it the other way, I would come up with the same answer. But I'd get it a little bit faster. I wouldn't have to do this cross multiplication and then be staring at this 200 in the face, right? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes even looking, apologize, my nose itches, sometimes even looking at big numbers freaks my brain out, right? you will sit there and look at it and be like, that number is huge, and I have to divide a 9 into it? That's going to take forever. It doesn't take forever, but your brain may think that, and it may cause you to freeze. Okay? Percentages. 2 different ways to find them. Okay? Once you've got it down and you've practiced that method, it becomes easier to find a percentage from a fraction. Okay? Decimals are the easiest in my opinion, but they can be done fairly quickly with fractions. Practice makes perfect, guys. Comments below, concerns. If you have another way to find percentages from fractions or decimals that is different from what I've shown you here, comment below. Tell me. Alright? Thank you.